Hi everyone and welcome to another SOLIDWORKS Model Mania made in Fusion 360. Today we are going to take up the challenge of year 2006. We have a lot of things to do, so let's get started. I'm going to hit Control N, which is the shortcut for creating a new design. Let me grab the 2D drawing and let's inspect this view. I'm going to zoom in. Let's start out creating this profile, minimizing this. I'm going to start off by creating a circle and sketching that on our XY plane. I'm going to hit C right away, select a plane or planar face, selecting our XY plane. Let's drop our center point at the origin. I am seeing a 30 radius, and because this is a circle, I'm going to key in 60, the half of that, which is 30, hitting enter. Let me move this dimension over here, zoom in. In addition, we can turn this into a radial dimension by selecting this dimension, right click and select toggle radius. So notice it's now 30. Next, I'm going to grab our line tool and I'm going to create 3 lines. Let me place our first point here, left click, double left click to end the chain of line. Left click here, double left click here, and double left click. Hitting escape. Next, I want to make sure this vertical line at the middle is coincident with our origin. So with this line selected, I'm going to hold Control to select this point or origin as well. With both of them selected, I can right click and select coincident. Hitting escape. Next, I would like to apply a symmetry constraint on these 2 vertical lines and this line at the middle serving as our symmetry line. And to do that, I'm going to select first this line at the left, holding Control, line at the right, and finally this line at the middle will be our symmetry line. With the 3 of them selected, I can now right click and notice at the bottom we now have a symmetry. Hitting escape. In addition, I know this line and this line are both perfectly vertical because notice this line is parallel with our vertical line at the middle, and same with the other side. Moving forward, let's place the arc here. I'm going to hit S for sketch shortcuts, typing ARC, and I'm going to select 3-point arc. Let me drop the first point at the end point of this line, left click here, and let me place our third click on this end point. Let's repeat. Creating another arc here, left click, and left click here. Hitting escape. Next, let me make sure that this point and this point are both horizontally aligned. So I'm going to head up to our constraints, selecting horizontal, vertical, selecting this point and this point, this point and this point. Hitting escape. And let's now apply dimension on this arc, hitting D, selecting this arc. Let's place our dimension here, key in 32, hitting escape. Let me move this arc up once more. And this arc is also the same with this arc, so I'm going to select this dimensioned arc, holding Control, selecting this arc as well, right click and select equal. Next, the overall length of our model is 92. Let me hit escape and hit D. I'm going to select this point and this point, place our dimension here, key in 92. Hitting escape. Let's inspect. And by moving entities, notice these two lines needs to have a clear distance between them. So I'm going to hit D for dimension. Select this vertical line, this vertical line. Let's place our dimension here and key in 32. Hitting escape. And finally, this arc needs to be concentric with this circle. So I'm going to select this circle as well. With both of them selected, I can right click and select concentric. It turned into black, meaning it's fully defined. Hitting escape. And from here, we can now select finish sketch. Moving forward, let's focus on this left side and create this sketch. Let me hit L for a line. My intent here is just to quickly get in to sketch mode. Selecting our YZ plane. Hit escape to disable the arc command. And I'm going to grab our arc command. Hitting S for shortcuts, typing ARC and selecting 3-point arc. Let's create 3 arcs. Heading back to right view once more. Left click here and left click here. Create the other arc. Left click here, left click, and left click. So notice I have inferred a tangent constraint, so watch out for that as well. Next, let's drop our first point at this endpoint. Moving over to this endpoint as well. And left click. Hitting escape. Let me delete this accidental tangent constraint. Selecting this. Hitting delete. I need to connect this endpoint to this sketch. And notice we need to project a reference. Specifically this point. So I'm going to hit P for project. Under selection filter, specified entities as enabled. Let's have projection link enabled. Hovering over this point, left click, and let's project this endpoint as well. Left click and select OK. Let's head back to right view. And from here, we can grab our coincident constraint, select this endpoint and this projected point. Once more, selecting this endpoint and this projected point. Hitting escape. Let's apply dimensions. Hitting D for dimension. Let's first dimension this arc at the right. Selecting this. Radius to be 32. Let's dimension this arc as well, which needs to be 20. Hitting escape. And if you carefully inspect the 2D drawing, the center point of this arc, which is this point, needs to be coincident with our origin as well. So I'm going to head over to coincident, selecting our center point for this arc and our origin. Hitting escape, and let's inspect. In addition, this endpoint needs to be aligned vertically with our origin. So I'm going to head up to constraints, selecting horizontal vertical, selecting this point, making sure it's slightly leaning towards a vertical position to apply the vertical constraint. So with this point selected, heading over to our origin, selecting this, hitting escape. Moving forward, the center point of this arc should be aligned horizontally with our origin. So let's head up once more to horizontal vertical, selecting this center point and selecting this point or our origin. Hitting escape. Next, let's apply a tangent constraint between these arcs. Heading up to tangent, selecting this arc and this arc, this arc and this arc. It turned into black, which means we are on the right path. Hitting escape, and we can now select finish sketch. Let's grab the challenge once more, and notice this feature over here is a semisphere. Let's head back to Fusion 360. And to create that semisphere, we have this circle and the revolve tool to make that a reality. So I'm going to hit S or head over to create and simply select revolve. The profile is the half of this circle. So selecting this profile and this profile, activating axis, the axis to be this line, and for the angle, make sure it's 180 degrees. Operation new body, and let's select OK. Moving forward, let's create this feature at the middle. And to do that, I'm going to head over to Surface, and under Create, we're going to select Sweep. For the profile, let me head over to our sketches and turn on the visibility of sketch 1, selecting this eyeball, selecting this arc. So notice chain selection is enabled. Let's disable this. Once more, under profile, selecting this arc. For the path, we're going to select this paths, leaving the defaults, and operation new body, selecting OK. Moving forward, let's create the sides of this surface. And to do that, I'm going to extrude both of these lines. Heading up to create under surface, selecting extrude. And instead of selecting both of these lines, I'm going to extrude them individually. But first, let me disable chaining, selecting this line and move this up. Recall that this arc is 32, which means our overall height is 32 as well. Now, this is just a personal preference. As long as this extrusion goes way beyond the 32, but for me, this will now do. In addition, I prefer linking this up to a parameter, and let's search what parameter ID that is. I'm going to hit OK for now. Hit S for shortcuts, typing PAR, selecting change parameters. Let's head over unsaved and twirl this down. Under sketch 2, that radial or arc that has the value of 32 has a parameter name or ID of D6. Selecting OK and keeping that in mind. Let's head over to our timeline. I'm going to double left click Extrude 1 to edit this feature. And I'm going to plug in D6 for distance. And by doing this, whenever that arc updates, our extrusion will update as well. Operation new body, selecting OK. Let's repeat extrude, heading up, selecting extrude. Let's disable chaining, selecting this line, keying in D6. Operation new body, and let's select OK. Let's head over to our timeline. I'm going to double left click Extrude 1 to edit this feature. And I'm going to plug in D6 for distance. And by doing this, whenever that arc updates, our extrusion will update as well. Operation new body, selecting OK. Let's repeat extrude, heading up, selecting extrude. Let's disable chaining, selecting this line, keying in D6. Operation new body, and let's select OK. Let's trim out excess surfaces. So I'm going to head up and under modify, selecting trim. My intent here is to remove this excess surface. For the trim tool, it will be this surface. Selecting this target excess surface and this target excess surface. Take note of the color, which is red. Selecting OK. Let's remove distractions. I'm going to head over to bodies. Let's turn off our solid body and our sketch 1. Next, let's merge these three surfaces. And to do that, I'm going to head over to Stitch, creating a window selection to select all of these three surfaces, leaving the defaults and selecting OK. Moving forward, let's fill up or patch this hole. And to do that, we're going to head up to create and select patch. For the boundary edges, it will be this edge. Once more, leaving the defaults, operation new body, and selecting OK. Notice we now have two surface bodies. And to turn this into a solid body, we need to stitch them up once more. So heading up to Stitch, once more, creating a window selection and selecting OK. So notice the surface bodies now became a solid body. Let's turn on the visibility of our first body, selecting this eyeball. And our next intent is to merge or combine both of these bodies into one. To do that, let's head up to modify and select combine. Target body, any of the two will do. Let's select body 1. For tool bodies, it will be body 2. In my case, it's named as body 7, operation join. And I don't have a need to create a new component and keep the tools as well. So having this both disabled, selecting OK. Notice on the bodies folder, we now have just one body. Our next intent is to hollow out our model. But before we do that, let's add the fillets first. Hitting F for fillet, and let's select edges, selecting this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. The value for this is 4. Inspecting, leaving the defaults once more, and selecting OK. Let's grab our shell command, hitting S for shortcuts, typing SH, selecting shell. And for the faces or body to exclude, it's this bottom face. Selecting this. Inside thickness to be 4. Direction inside. Looking nice and selecting OK. Let's inspect our drawing once more. So notice at this view, I am seeing 4 millimeters. My strategy would be creating a plane offset from our XY plane by 4 millimeters in order for me to sketch out this structural reinforcements. Heading back to Fusion 360. Let me head up now to construct and select offset plane. Our target plane would be our XY plane. Let's move this up, and to be exact, keying in for the distance. Selecting OK. Let's sketch on this newly created plane. I'm going to select this plane, right click and select Create Sketch. Let me rotate our view by selecting this arrow pointing to the left. Next, let me turn on the visibility of our sketch 1, which will serve as our reference. In addition, this body distracts my view, so I'm going to head over to bodies and let's turn off its visibility as well. Moving forward, let's grab our circle command. Let's place our center point at the origin. Diameter for this one is 12. Let me reposition this diameter here. Next, I'm going to create a line coming from or coincident with our circle going to our origin. But first, we need a reference. So I'm going to hit P for project. Selection filter is specified entities, and let's enable projection link. I'm going to select this circle and this horizontal line. Selecting OK. Hitting L for line. Creating two lines from here going to this intersection. Double left click here, double left click on this intersection, hitting escape. Let's add an angle between these two lines, hitting D for dimension, selecting this line. Let's place our dimension here, key in 120, hitting escape, and let's inspect. And lastly, let's add a symmetry constraint. So heading up to constraints, selecting symmetry, selecting this point, and finally our symmetry line. Hitting escape, it turned into black, meaning we are right on track. In addition, my intent on these sketches is to use them for the web command. And if I use this line for the web command, obviously we will be creating a solid feature here as well. What I'm going to do now is break this line segment and turn this into a construction line. So I'm going to hit S for shortcuts, typing BR, selecting break, hovering over this line. So notice the X mark. Left click, and let's repeat the command. Right click, selecting repeat break. Let's break this line as well. Left click, hitting escape, and select these two line segments and hit X, which is the shortcut for construction. Inspecting. We can now proceed to selecting Finish Sketch. Let me turn on the visibility of our body and turn off the visibility of Sketch 1. Rotating this. Let's now hit S for shortcuts, typing WE and selecting Web. Let's start out selecting this circle. Let's move this arrow outward, typing in -4 for its wall thickness. And to have this cylinder move or terminate up to the bottom face, we simply need to select flip direction And for the thickness option, selecting one direction. So it's pointing outward. Selecting OK. Let's turn on the visibility of Sketch 4 once more. Hit S and select Web once more. Selecting this line. In addition, the web feature doesn't allow us to have multiple selections. Let's select OK for now. Right click once more, selecting Repeat Web and selecting this line. Selecting OK. And I forgot to create the sketch for the other web here. It's simple. All we need to do is head back to our recent sketch, double left click. Let me rotate this view once more. Hit L for line, create a line from our origin going to this endpoint, hitting escape. Next, let's break this line once more. So notice we have two overlapping lines. Hit S for shortcuts, typing BR, selecting break, and hovering over this line segment. Notice my current selection, left click, and reselect this horizontal line and hit X to turn this line into a construction line. Hitting escape, let's turn this horizontal line as well into a construction line. Hitting X, inspecting. So notice we now have one solid line here. Let's now select Finish Sketch. Hit S for shortcuts, typing WE, selecting Web, and let's select this line. Inspecting. Take note of the settings. Selecting OK. And let's turn off the visibility of this sketch. Finally, let's add some fillets. Hitting F for fillet. And as a personal preference, I prefer heading up to select first. Under selection filters, I'm going to disable select all and enable body edges. Let's flip this up and select all the required edges. And finally, selecting this last edge. For the radius, I'm going to key in 1. Looking nice. Selecting OK. And congratulations for completing Phase 1. Hi everyone and welcome to Phase 2. And for this challenge, the revisions are, notice this feature is now at an angle. And our webs now has a draft angle of 2 degrees. Let's head back to Fusion 360. Recall that we have extruded the sides as a surface. So let's head over to our timeline and move back in time to where we have initially created our first surface extrusion. Let me select this feature, right click and select Edit Feature. This needs to be at an angle. Let's head over to Taper Angle and key in 15. Selecting OK. Let's move our marker one step. Select this feature, double left click. And this time, this will be at negative 15. Selecting OK. Moving forward, let's move one step. Instead of dragging this to the right, I can head over here and select next step. In addition, let me zoom here. In order for trim to take effect, we need to have an overlap. So notice this face doesn't go way beyond to the left in order for us to trim surface body 2. In this instance, what we need to do is extend these edges. I'm going to zoom out, move backward once more, and this time I'm going to hit S for shortcuts, typing EX and selecting extend. Let me select this edge. And for the sake of consistency, I'm going to key in 5. What matters here is we are going way beyond this surface. Selecting OK. Let's repeat the step 3 times. Selecting this edge, keying in 5, right click, repeat, extend, selecting this edge, selecting OK. Right click, repeat, extend, selecting this edge and selecting OK. Let's move our timeline marker once more to the right. Let's trim out this excess surface. Hitting S for shortcuts, typing TR and selecting trim. Selecting this surface, selecting this piece to be removed. Notice it turned into red. Selecting OK. Repeating the procedure. Right click. Selecting repeat trim. This surface to be the trimming tool. The surface to be removed. Selecting OK. Let's check. Moving our marker to the right one step. Let's move our marker once more to check the patch. Looking nice. Moving this one step ahead. It turned into a body. The effect of combine tool. Let's check the fillets. It's still okay. The shell. And let's move up to the sketch. Let's move this further until all webs have been created. And before we move into the fillets, let's add the drafts first. Hitting S for shortcuts, typing DR, selecting draft. Let's start off with faces. Left click here to activate this. Selecting all of these faces. Next, activating pull direction. It will be this face. Once more, the type to be a fixed plane. I'm going to key in 2 for the angle. Draft sides to be one side. And selecting OK. Let's now move the fillets. Double left click to edit this feature. Let's inspect. I'm going to hold Control to add this edge. Holding Control once more to add this edge. Holding Control, adding this edge. Holding Control, adding this edge. And let's deselect this edge. Checking once more, deselecting this edge and adding this edge. We are all set. Selecting OK. Heading to home view. And congratulations for completing phase 2. If you have reached this point in the video, I am inviting you to join us in LinkedIn. Our group is Fusion 360 worldwide users. If you find this useful, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel a lot. Thanks for watching and see you in the next SOLIDWORKS Model Mania made in Autodesk Fusion 360.